What's up, guys? I'm going to talk about money today. I don't care if you're rich or poor, a capitalist or a socialist. This is going to be important for you to hear. Because a lot of the problems that we have in the country, in the world, in your family, in your personal life, it's all about money. And that's why a lot of people hate money. They hate capitalism. Because, oh my God, everything boils down to money. And it shouldn't be. We should have a right to live and all this other stuff. And I'm not going to talk too much about that right now. But what I am going to talk about is how you think about money and what you do with money. And money is just resource, right? Money buys resources. It's basically nothing. Money is worthless, but you trade it for other things that are worth something. And so really when it comes down to money, it comes down to your resources. What are you using your resources for? Right? How are you getting those resources? How much resources do you have? And I want to start out by if you're interested in more of this topic, there's a really great book that I had the privilege of being informed about when I was a lot younger called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Basically about a guy who, his dad was poor. He went to a nice school where his best friend's dad was rich. So he had two dads giving him financial advice, and basically learned the difference between how rich people think and how poor people think. Now, that's not to say you have to be a rich person. You have to become a rich person. You have to start thinking like a rich person, because money isn't everything. But a lot of the thought patterns and decision-making that he talks about in that book are very important to every single person. I don't care what you're trying to do with your life. I don't care if you're trying to be rich or not. The main thing is, don't make decisions that put yourself in debt. Don't become so broke that your life becomes miserable and you spend your entire life trying to pay off debt that you have worked yourself into because of bad decisions you've made. Now, if you want to get rich, yeah, the advice is going to be pretty helpful for you too. But if you want to not be dirt poor, especially in America, there's some really good information in there. And one of the things that I saw this morning on the interwebs that kind of sparked this conversation is somebody made a post. I don't know if it was fake or not, but it was this woman basically saying, my husband won't get a second job. I quit my job so I could plan this wedding. And we don't have, he's saying we don't have enough money, we have to spend less, but I want an $80,000 wedding. Now I say I don't know if this is true, and we look at this and we say, oh my God, I hope this isn't true. But I know people like that. So it could very well be true. But here's the thing. Everybody wants to have, not everybody, but a lot of people want to have these amazing grand weddings, right? You want to throw a royal wedding for your new queen, right? You want to be king of your life. And that's a fine mentality to have as far as being king and queen. But to spend $50,000, $20,000 even on a wedding is pretty stupid. If you don't have that kind of money. There was, the De Beers diamonds thing. So, for those of you who don't know, De Beers basically has a monopoly on diamonds. Diamonds are pretty much worthless. But you go to a diamond store to get a diamond ring for a wedding, and they're fucking ridiculously expensive. And they had this propaganda campaign a long time ago. I don't know if it was in like the 50s or something, where basically they said, oh, your engagement ring should be the cost of 2 paychecks or something. You know, they had like some equation for figuring out how much you're supposed to spend on it. It's a waste of money. You take those rings and you try to sell them anywhere, The only place you're going to be able to sell them is a pawn shop. You're not going to sell them to you're not going to sell them on Craigslist. Maybe you can, but you're not going to get anything near worth what you paid for it at the jewelry store, because they're basically worthless. There's no secondary market for it. It's a waste of money. The party itself, yeah, it's a great party. Lasts for a few hours, and then it's over. And you got some great pictures and some great memories. But you can take great pictures and make some great memories without spending $50,000 on a party. Instead, use that money to pay off your house. You know how much better your life is going to be in that marriage if you don't have a mortgage to pay? And so a lot of people look at money and they're like, oh, well, I mean, my paycheck, I'm getting $3,000 a month after taxes. Okay, that's $3,000 a month, and my mortgage is only $1,000 a month, so I've got $2,000 a month that I can spend left over. I can spend all this money. No. First of all, start a savings account and start putting money in there. And it doesn't have to be a cash account, because we all know the dollar's worthless and it's losing money. Put it into crypto. Put it into stocks. Put it into anything, right? And don't start playing the stock market like you're some expert. Maybe put it into a mutual fund or something like that that's going to give you a return. Or buy some other investment that's going to give you a better return. Start a business, something like that. Don't spend it on a car, because you're going to spend all this money. You're going to get a new loan. You're going to spend $1,000 a month between your loan and your insurance and all this other shit. That's money you could be saving. You're going to spend all this money so you can drive around in a nice car for a couple of years, and then at the end of a couple of years, you're going to feel so bad that your car is so old that you're going to have to get a new one, and you're going to perpetually be spending $1,000 a month. And at the end of all that, at the end of 30 years of paying every month so that you have the luxury of driving around in a new car, you're going to have nothing. You're going to have a shitty old car. Instead, buy the shitty old car to start with and just save everything that you're not spending on your car payments and your insurance. Your insurance is going to be much lower if you buy a beater. It doesn't matter how old you are. The last car I bought was $3,500. I paid cash. It was an SUV. It was like a Mitsubishi SUV. It was probably like 5 years old. And it ran pretty well. It got me where I was going. I didn't have to worry about payments. I didn't always have insurance on it, but when I did, it was only $100 a month. That was my only payment. Actually, no, I don't even think it was $100 a month. I think it was like $50. And I didn't even have a license. Think of all the money that you could save if you're only paying $50 a month to have insurance. Think of all the money you're saving. Because everybody wants to have like a really nice house, right? But what do? You go out and you buy, you get the biggest loan you possibly can for the biggest house you can possibly get. And then what are you doing? You're giving all your money to the bank. You're paying a ridiculous amount of money in interest and property insurance and all this other shit, and property tax, just to have this big fancy house, and you have nothing left over to save. And if you have nothing left over to save, that means you can't pay down the mortgage any faster, which means you're stuck in that house for 30 years. And you can't upgrade. Buy a smaller house, put a bigger down payment, pay it off quicker, get a shorter loan, do all these things, you'll have your house paid off in 5 years. Then you can upgrade to another house. You get to keep all of the value that you've been putting into that first house and use it as a massive down payment on a nicer house. And so 30 years, you might have upgraded 2 or 3 times to a much nicer house. Instead of being stuck in that first house that you bought and having absolutely nothing to show for it. So a lot of people think like, oh, well, I qualify for this big amazing loan, I can get this big amazing house. But here's the thing. 80% of America is in debt by an average of $140,000. That's the average. For most people, if they sold everything that they had, they couldn't even pay off all of their debt. So not only do they have nothing, they're in debt. And what does that mean? That means they still have to go out and beg for a job. I mean, think about it. Why do people take jobs that pay $5 an hour? Or minimum wage? Right? Because my mentality is, oh, you want me to stand there flipping burgers all day? I don't want to do that. There's nothing in that for me. How much are you going to pay me for that? You better give me a lot of money if you want me to sit around and do that all day. But if I were desperate, oh my God, I got to pay my rent. I got to pay these bills. I have so much debt. I can't be late or they're going to take my car away and I'm going to have nothing. You're going to walk into that job. Oh man, I don't want to flip burgers. How much does it pay? $5? God damn, well, I guess I got to. I need a check. Desperation is the reason that they pay so low. They're banking on your desperation. So don't be desperate. Don't waste your money on stupid shit. Don't buy $100 sneakers. Don't buy $50,000 cars. Unless you're a millionaire, you don't need a $50,000 car. Think about that. Oh, but it's more fuel efficient. Oh, but it runs on electricity. You're not going to save that much money. Do the math. I mean, I've seen so many people who are like, oh yeah, well, it's time to trade in my new car. I'm going to take out a new loan because my current car only gets 20 miles per gallon and my new one's going to get 30 miles per gallon. Think of all the money I'm going to save. Well, how many miles do you drive every month? How many gallons of gas do you put in your car every month? They haven't done the math. They don't know how much money they're going to save. And when you actually do the math, unless you're, I mean, there's some cars that are actually pretty cheap. They get higher mileage, like I don't know, maybe a Honda Civic or something, or a Toyota Corolla. But that's not usually the kind of upgrade people are looking for. If you did that, the math might work out, especially if you buy one that's a couple years old and used. Because a couple years old, you're getting a car that's half the price, still runs just as good. People are stupid with money. You have to think about these things. So here's another one. Somebody asked a couple days ago, should I refinance? A lot of people look at it like this. Let's say you had a loan and you got like 4% interest on your loan. Oh my God, the rates are like 2 or 3% now. They're lower. That's like 25. If you go from 4% to 3%, that's 25% lower in interest. Yes, it is. But banks aren't stupid. They already have you paying every month. Why would they offer you a new loan? Well, you have one bank who's trying to take business from the other bank. Okay, sure, they're going to try to undercut them. But a lot of times what they do is they hide all kinds of origination fees and all this other shit into the loan. So you want to refinance? You got to pay several $1,000s extra. That's a few extra payments just to transfer to the new bank. So even though you're getting a lower interest rate, you're still paying more money. Maybe, depending on how much they cut it. But here's the other thing. Let's say you've been making payments and you've only got 20 years left on your loan, and you're going to refinance to a new 30-year loan because the payments are lower, what are you doing? You're extending your loan out by an extra 10 years. It's going to take you 10 more years to pay off your loan than if you didn't refinance. What should you do? Get a shorter term loan. I was looking at somebody's loan, and we were running the numbers. They have a 30-year loan. They have about 20 years left on it. And if they switch, they had I think like 4.25%. If they switch to a 10-year loan, right? They've got 20 years left. They can switch to a 10-year loan, which would mean now this is going to be paid off in 10 years instead of 20. It's going to be paid off faster. Not only would they get a lower rate, they'd get something like 2.1%, whereas if they got the 30-year loan, it would be like 2.5%. Oh, well, still 2 point something. Doesn't sound like a whole lot more. Yeah, but it's an extra 20 years. You get that 2.1%, your payments are the same as they are now. Oh, well, what's the point of refinancing if I'm going to be making the same payments? Because you're cutting 10 years off of your loan. You're going to be debt-free on that house in 10 years instead of 20. Instead of increasing it 30. So is there a right time to refinance? Yes. What if refinancing doesn't make sense? Because sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the interest rate change is not going to save you that much money, and you're going to pay all these bank fees. It's going to cost you more. Then what? Make extra payments. There's a little trick that a lot of people will teach you that's usually when you get a loan, it's a 30-year loan, and they tell you to make one payment every month. If you break that payment in half and make that payment every 2 weeks when you get your paycheck, what happens is there's 52 weeks in a year. That means there's 28 half payments, which means there's 14 full payments instead of every month, 12 full payments. You're making an extra 2 payments every year. And you don't even really notice the difference because instead of paying $1,000 a month, you're paying $500 every 2 weeks. You don't even notice it. But what does that do? That alone will pay off a 30-year loan in 23 years. That takes 7 years. And depending on the size of your loan, tens of thousands of dollars off of your loan. And you don't have to refinance to do that. If you want to pay a little bit more, you can pay a little bit more. If you make 4 extra payments a year, unfortunately, it doesn't take 14 years off of the loan. It doesn't work that well. If you want to pay more, pay more. But there are all kinds of things that you can do to get out of debt and save money. And this is the way you have to start thinking, because what do they want? How do banks make money? They make money when you're in debt. They want you to be in debt. Get out of debt. Stop playing that stupid game. If you're in debt, you're just a cash cow for the banks. Do you hate the banks? Do you hate capitalism? Do you hate money? Stop getting into debt. Even if that means making a few sacrifices, partying a little bit less, doing whatever you got to do a little bit less to get out of debt. Because once you're out of debt, here's the thing. Once you own your house and you don't have any debt, all of the money that you earn, you get to keep. Right? Renting sucks. You're throwing away money and you don't get anything for it. Owning a house only sucks a little bit less if you have a mortgage, because you still don't get to spend any of that money. It's going right into the house. So pay off all your debts so that you can actually keep the money that you have, and then save it. and then buy things that are valuable, not things that lose value over time. Don't just throw your money away. Build something with it. Build a life. Build a savings. Because when shit like coronavirus happens again, and there's always going to be a next depression, it's always again. No, we're going to have a problem again. It could be war, it could be famine, it could be a disease, it could be subprime mortgages. It could be anything. Someone's always out there screwing with things, and it's always causing economic downturn. But if you have savings and you have wealth and you don't have debt, you don't have to worry about any of that shit. And there's enough to go around for everybody. Like, don't think that, oh, not everybody can be rich. I used to think that. And there's some truth to it, right? Like, you can't look at the stock market and be like, oh, everybody can be a winner because anybody who wins is taking from somebody else. You can't have a situation where everybody is winning. But you can have a situation where nobody has debt and everybody has savings. That's absolutely possible. I mean, think about it. Who builds all these houses? The bank doesn't build all these houses. We build all these houses. Who digs the materials out of the ground and turns them into usable materials so that we can build houses? Us, the people, not the banks. They just finance it. The banks don't hammer one nail into any wood anywhere. We build it. Why can't we build it without the banks? Well, we absolutely can. And when we get out of that mentality of, oh, we need money to pay for stuff, and, oh, no, we can do some of this on our own. And I know this is like the communist's wet dream, right? Like, oh, yeah, we don't need money. We can have our commune and we can all do blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that's absolutely possible. Probably not there's all kinds of things that are going to be totally different on the outcome on that, but it's totally possible. But the point is, you don't need to borrow money from a bank to do every little thing. And there are so many things that we do that we really don't need to be doing. It doesn't make our life any better. In the short term, yeah, it feels good to spend a little bit of money on some nice new clothes, something like that, but in the long term, what does it do? You put it on your credit card, then you get the bill at the end of the month. Holy shit, did I spend all this money? And then your paycheck is just poof, gone. Alright, guys. Go check out that book. I'll catch you guys later.